Hello, my name's John Stewart. Welcome to Schneer TV. In this episode, we'll be talking about Laurentian's solid wood program. The main point that we want to get across is that Schneer's solid program is designed to be differentiated from Canadian-made products. As much as possible, we've tried to make our products somehow different from products that are made by Canadian manufacturers. So in this episode, I'm going to go through a range of products that we have in our solid program and explain how we've tried to make each one different. The first product that we'll talk about is the Laurentian White Oak, Legacy White Oak program. And this is a Chinese-made solid product that we asked the manufacturer to duplicate the look of traditional Canadian solid flooring. It's four-sided micro bevel with a traditional 35% gloss finish. What we've done differently in this case, and I think you should be able to pick this up, but if I move the product back and forth like this, you can see there's absolutely no texture. This is a 100% grain-filled urethane finish, also known as a furniture finish. And this is what Canadian manufacturers were famous for about 20 years ago when they perfected flatline finishing. Very few manufacturers in Canada still make these 100% filled finishes, and that's what makes Legacy White Oak unique. It's a very good value, a very well manufactured product. The sister product for Legacy White Oak is Legacy Birch. The same four-sided micro bevel styling, in this case in Russian white birch, which is not quite as dense as our North American yellow birch, but it's still a very serviceable floor and a great value. The good news in the Legacy program is that originally we had a very narrow color range that you would typically find in an entry-level product line. We've expanded the product range now to 15 colors. So there's a range of traditional butterscotch and gunstock types of colors, but also a range of modern colors as well. Now, the factory that manufactures Legacy White Oak is really famous for making exotic woods, and they produce Brazilian exotic woods like jatoba and tigerwood, but the species that they're most famous for is shortleaf acacia. We call this product line tropical walnut. We don't use the word acacia or the name acacia because acacia is a family of species. Like maple, we have hard maple and soft maple. With acacia, we have shortleaf acacia, which is this heavy, dense acacia with a lot of color variation and character. And then there's longleaf acacia, which is a much less dense species and has much less character. That's the only exotic product that we carry today. Because in the past, when people wanted something other than maple and oak, they would typically find a exotic like Brazilian cherry. But in this case, or what we found more recently, is that consumers are looking for products with a lot of character. So this is an exotic wood with a great deal of character. This is the natural color of shortleaf acacia that we call tropical walnut color Nuana. The next product line that we'll talk about is a Canadian-made product line called Cafe. When we introduced Cafe about a year ago, we decided to make the product different from other Canadian-made products. And what we did in this case is we asked the factory to not separate the grades. So what you'll find in Canadian manufacturing is that they produce three grades typically. A number 2 common, a number 1 common, and a select and better. And in this case, we've asked the mill to combine the 1 common and the select and better together, and this allows us to get longer average lengths. And we believe that people don't mind having some color variation in the product. They'd much rather have the longer average length. And so we think the trade-off benefits consumers by leaving some of the natural character in the product. And if I could show you a perfect example, we have a plank here that's the full length of the box. And what would typically happen in the past is the manufacturer would cut this piece in half and remove that knot. If I turn around on the other side, the knot's there, but when it's sanded and finished and stained, it's almost imperceptible. So we believe it makes much greater sense to leave those small defects in the product and come up with a much longer average length. The biggest complaint with Canadian-made products today is the short average length, and we're trying to overcome that. So that's Legacy Maple. Legacy Maple also is differentiated because we moved it away from a 2 1/4, 3 1/4 product to a 3 1/4, 4. And we believe that most consumers want wider widths. 4¼ is probably the widest width you want to use for solid wood flooring in Canada, but we think if the installers are careful in the installation, that a 4-inch product is suitable for the Canadian market. The other thing that we did differently is we removed all of the, we'll call traditional colors. All the colors in the Cafe product line are modern, cool colors. So that's Cafe Maple. Cafe Red Oak, we did a very similar thing with the lengths. It's 3¼ and 4-inch again. But in this case, we further differentiated the product by changing the finish to a completely open finish. So if I move this board around, you can see there's the texture, the natural texture of the oak grain comes through. And what we did in this case is we simply removed the fill coat and we lightly wire brushed the surface to emphasize the very pleasing tight grain pattern that you'll find in Northern Red Oak. So that's Cafe Red Oak. Again, what we did in this case is we removed all the traditional gunstock butterscotch colors, and so this is a long length, specialized finish, solid product with a narrow but modern color range. The last product line that we're going to talk about today in the solid section of this presentation is a product line called Antique Oak. Antique Oak was introduced in 2005, so it's not a new product for Schneer, but it is the product that we have in our listings that's the most differentiated. And what makes 8048 different is the finish. Unlike urethane finish, UV cured urethane finish, the 8048 finish is applied in a different way. This is a heavy wire brushed solid product line. I think most consumers like the heavy wire brush texture. It gives the product a modern but somewhat rustic surface. From a manufacturing standpoint, though, a heavy wire brush product is difficult to stain because the heavy wire brush process opens up the grain, and using a roller coat, it's difficult to get the stain deep down into that open grain. So you'll see in some wire brush products, you'll see white flecks throughout the product, and those are areas where the stain hasn't made its way down into the deep wire brushed grain. In this case, to overcome that, the manufacturer hand stains every piece. So if I rub my fingers across this board, you can feel that it's a very heavy wire brush texture, and this is a product that the only way to make a product this way effectively is to hand stain the product. So I'm going to run through a series of slides now that show how the product's produced. And that, I think, helps dealers understand the difference between this product and other products. The other thing I should mention is that 8048 is a penetrating finish. It penetrates into the wood. It's not just sitting on top of the wood. All these other urethane products that I showed you earlier, the Cafe collection, and pretty much every product that's produced in Canada is a UV cured urethane finish, which means it's a thin layer of plastic that's sitting on top of the wood. And the total thickness of a UV cured finish is typically 2.5 to 3 mils, so half the thickness of 6 mil poly. 8048 contains no aluminum oxide, but it's a very durable floor because there's 15 times more finish on this product than there is on a traditional roller coat UV finish. So I'll explain now how the product's made. The first step is every piece is measured by hand to ensure that the moisture content is under 8%. It's very important in Canada for the moisture content to be low because of our dry heating season. The next step is the heavy wire brushing. This is a 5-stage wire brush machine, and each brush is sequentially heavier. So after it's gone through 5 brushes, the grain is opened up completely. The next stage, of course, is the real secret, and that's the hand staining. So in this factory, they have hundreds, quite honestly, of employees who hand stain flooring. And this is a technique that's used in Europe, and it's very expensive, of course, when it's produced in any place other than China. But because of the cost structure in this factory, we're able to offer this handmade product at a price that's very similar to the prices of the other traditional finishes. So after the stain is applied by hand, the next stage is to take each plank, put it on a rack, and push the rack into an air-conditioned part of the factory where it dries for 8 hours. When the stain is dry, they bring it back into the finishing area, and the product goes under a curtain coater. And a curtain coater is a heavy spray of finish that applies. That's why there's 15 times more finish on this product than there is on other products, because that heavy spray of finish penetrates into the wood. After the curtain coater, the products go back onto racks. They dry for 20 hours. When the first coat's dry, the material comes back into the finishing area. It goes through a roller coater to get a smooth top coat, then back on racks, dries for another 20 hours. So in total, AD48 dries for 48 hours. 8 hours for the stain, 20 hours for the curtain coat, and 20 hours for the roller coat process. AD48 is an acronym for air dried in 48 hours. You'll find on the back of the sample boards that have AD48 a small icon that reads AD48. You'll find the AD48 on two product lines at Chenier under the Laurentian brand. In the solid line, it's under Antique Oak, and in engineered, we have a 5-inch drop block brush product called Traditions Oak, and it also has the AD48 finish. So just to summarize, AD48 is a hand-stained product, but the great benefit of this finish is the fact that it's repairable. If you have a small scratch, then the repair can be made with just a Minwax stain pen, and we have a listing of the matching stain pen colors for each of the colors that are available in AD48. If it's a heavier scratch, then the scratch has to be sanded out, and in that case, you're going to restain the area that's been sanded. So you sand the area, tack off the sanding dust, you apply, in this case, Minwax Polyshade, which is a mixture of stain and finish. Polyshade comes in a semi-gloss finish and a satin gloss finish. You use the satin gloss product to match this 20% gloss level of the AD48 finish. And using this process of sanding out the scratch and then restaining with Polyshades, you can repair even a fairly heavy scratch. And this is something that just cannot be done with traditional UV cured aluminum oxide finishes. When you scratch an aluminum oxide finish, it's like breaking glass and you can't put it back together. To summarize, AD48 is differentiated. It's got a performance story that's very hard to duplicate. We give it a 5-year commercial warranty, even though it doesn't have aluminum oxide. It's hand stained. It's a penetrating stain and finish. There's 15 times more finish on this product than there is on other products. And the big benefit is that it's repairable. The great news is with the introduction of the Gemini wing display, we had the opportunity to introduce several new colors in AD48. Previously, there were only 6 colors available, and they were traditional colors. More recently, we've added these rich European grays, blacks, and whites that really suit the wire brush texture very well. And that brings to an end this episode of Chenier TV on Laurentian solid wood. My name's John Stewart. Thanks for watching.